So Charlie, welcome to Disabled and Proud. How are you today?
Good, excited to be here. Busy as ever, but very excited to be here.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you. Well, thank you for taking the time in your busy day to come on the podcast. I really appreciate it. And I'm really looking forward to this chat because I think we've got a lot in common. So I think it'll be really fun to dive into that.
Yeah, can't wait.
So the first question that I ask absolutely every single guest is, how do you refer to your disability?
Oh, good question. How do I refer to my disability apart from just an outright pain in the ass? I'm very easygoing. I run a platform called Not Quite Politically Correct that focuses on basically being as open as friendly as possible. So I frankly, as long as you don't use like seriously derogatory terms, I'm happy for you to refer to my disability however you like. I have cerebral palsy, so some people refer to it as CP, some people refer to it as its full name, some people say whether you're diaplegic or quadriplegic, but I'm very happy-go-lucky. I don't really have a set phrase that I go by. I'm happy to be called a disabled individual, happy to be called a differently abled individual. I really don't care, which is, I suppose, maybe a little bit different to some people in the community. And there's nothing wrong with that. I just feel that I'm not really, I don't have any strong feelings to one or the other, so I don't mind really.
I think that's a really good place to be in, though, because I think, as disabled people and disabled humans, like, we can get caught up in semantics of what you refer to disability as, or everybody has a very individual spin. And that's why I like to ask that question, because I think regardless of what your disability is, even if you had two people with the exact same disability, they will refer to it and they will engage with their disability in a completely different way. So it's always completely down to the individual. And it's really great that you're actually non-plussed about it, because there are so many people who feel very strongly about how they refer to their disability, and I think sometimes that's where people can get a bit confused. If then the non-disabled community, they get a bit confused because they don't know what to say or how to act, or what to even call your disability.
They feel quite unsafe, and that's what my page tries to tackle, is to try and say, look, I'd much rather you spit out the question that you got in your head and we sort out whether it's politically correct and the right way to say it after you've said it, rather than you sit there just staring at me like I'm an alien. I'd rather let's get the elephant out of the room and discuss my disability, because I know that's normally the main question that everyone's going, shit, how do I approach this? And that's the thing, it's trying to point out that I'm trying to open that door and say, look, I don't mind what you want to ask me about. Just ask me my name first. Don't go straight in for the jugular and go, right, you answer this question. And you're like, oh, okay, didn't realize I was being interrogated, but thanks.
Yeah, at least warm me up a bit before we dive in straight to the deep questions.
Yeah.
And so for you, obviously you were born with CP. And what was that experience like for you as a disabled child growing up? What was school like for you?
Just not to be a pain in the butt, but I wasn't technically born with it. And I
tell me the story.
No, so I wasn't technically born with it. I caught a throat infection at around about 4 weeks old and got sent home from the hospital too early. And because of that, basically, I didn't have enough white blood cells to fight off the infection that I caught while being out of hospital. Stopped breathing, and because of lack of air to the brain, caused what we now know as cerebral palsy. So it's a bit of a weird one, because I don't know anything other than obviously because it happened so early on. I don't know any other. So I have the same experience as to someone that would have been born with it, but it catches a load of people out to be like, oh yeah, by the way, I died 7 times.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Firstly, I need to apologize for the massive faux pas on my account. As a disabled person, this just proves that disabled people also can get it wrong. So welcome to the real world. But also, what? That was the bombshell that you just dropped.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't mean to drop you in it. I just thought it's a cool story, and it's a cool place to it's a cool thing to start with. Yeah. So I have, but if I know you're recording this, but for those that are listening to this, I have a tattoo on my arm that has the date in which I stopped breathing, and people find that really morbid that I have that permanent reminder. But like at the end of the day, I view my disability as something that shaped me into the person I am today. Prime example, I wouldn't run the businesses I run and the projects that I run if I didn't have a disability. So I'd probably, knowing what I'm like, want to try out being a professional footballer, fail miserably, and move on to something else.
I think that's like, I actually love the fact that you have that tattooed on you, because I think I probably would also do something very similar, that it's a reminder that actually, like, you're here again, and like,
Yeah.
we're on a floating rock at the end of the day. Like, I always, if something
Yeah.
big upsets
Yeah.
me, I'm like, the reality of life is I'm on a floating rock in space. Like, that is our reality. So I kind of get it. I think it's quite cool.
Yeah, it's that background thought of you're on a floating rock and technically you're not really worth. Like it's really weird. Like it's a real concept because I don't want to say you're not worth anything, but in the grand scheme of things, you're just one dude or one lady.
Yeah.
It's really, it's a really weird way to think, but yeah, it's true. It's true. It's that grounding of like I always think of, if that didn't happen, where would I be? And like you sit there thinking,
Yeah.
that's a crazy turn to take. And also I sit there and it also reminds me like, God, I must have scared the absolute life out of my parents. Just being
Yeah.
like, do you know what? Seventh, eighth time round, I'm gonna stick around for a bit. It's a little bit weird.
8 times the charm, as they say.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, yeah. So, like, for me, going back to your question, because I realized I sort of took it on a different tangent. Growing up was, I'd say I probably experienced a lot of what physically disabled people experience, particularly those that go to a mainstream school. So, primary school was a very, very, very positive experience because my experience is young people just don't, like, young kids don't care.
Yeah.
They don't care if you've got a disability or not, whether you've got ginger hair, dark hair. They really couldn't care less. Is when you started stepping into that secondary school world, or for those that are listening, if you're over in the States, when you move into like high school and things like that, that's when things for me really changed.
Yeah.
Because like you're all, as anyone is, you're trying to find your group and find who you are and what you are and what you want to be interested in. So it's, yeah, so that was when I started coming up against a bit more. I mean, for God's sakes, I'm ginger in a wheelchair and about 5'3". So like you can imagine the teasing that happened. But then I always say, so I went into primary school as anyone, secondary school as anyone would, trying to get in with the popular crew, and then that just wasn't me. Like it wasn't where I fitted in. And then I found my weirdo bunch of friends that I got now, and that was where I really felt comfortable and could be completely myself. Didn't have to watch what I was saying, and kind of could. We all had the same dark, twisted sense of humor. And then, yeah, and other than that, in terms of like grades and stuff, I did okay. I didn't do fantastic. Obviously, had support, so I got 25% extra time. Had a scribe as well. Yeah, other than that, it was all pretty standard.
Yeah.
Hate to say it, but it was pretty vanilla. There was nothing really exciting that happened, really.
Yeah. I think it's hilarious that you brought up the fact that you and your friends have like a really dark, weird sense of humor, because I do think there is something quite inherent with disabled people, and also like having a dark sense of humor. Like they tend to come hand in hand. And I'm pretty sure like I don't actually know a disabled person who doesn't have a dark sense of humor.
Yeah. I always remember. So I was sitting in my office at my job. So I've been at my job about a year and a half. And team member I very rarely spoke to, knew of her, lovely, very soft spoken. But I remember sitting there and she was like, "Oh, I'm gonna go out for a walk." And without thinking, I like autopilot went, "Wouldn't know what that's like." And like I didn't mean anything by it, but I just said it without thinking. And she was absolutely mortified. Didn't know whether to laugh, cry, hide, didn't know what to do.
Just wanted the ground to swallow her up.
Yeah. But then I always explain to people, I'm like, look, I've those sort of jokes, laugh. Like it's much funnier if you laugh at it with me, as opposed to me just making you feel really awkward.
Yeah. Exactly. And also, I do tend to think they're quite a good judge of character of
Yeah.
the other person, because you know if they laugh or snigger, you're probably going to get on
Yeah.
with them.
Yeah, and also I often, I don't know about yourself, but I often use it as an icebreaker. So like
Mm.
people, you can see them, they're all 10, so they want to ask you about your disability, or they want to ask what happened or whatever, but they don't know how to approach it because they don't know whether you're going to bite their head off or welcome the
Mhm.
conversation. So I often use that, and it's a tactic that not all people feel comfortable using, because then you're encouraging people to, I suppose, take the piss. But
Yeah.
yeah, I use it as an icebreaker to say, look, if you want to chat about my disability, we can, and I'm really lucky about it. So don't feel that any questions off the table. I mean, as we said earlier, just start with the basics first. Don't go straight in with, right, so tell me about your love life. And I'm like, oh, here we go.
People are obsessed with asking that question. People
Yep.
freaking love that question. And I'm like, oh, there must be something in the air when people need to ask it. Like they're just curious and they want to know. But it's the
Yeah.
way that people ask you about that particular like subsection of your
Yeah.
life.
Yep. It's just, I mean, I can't really say anything because I've done pieces of content surrounding it. So I am very open and honest about
Yeah.
it. But it's so weird how people just go straight into the jugular. Like, not even, hi, Charlie, let me buy you a drink first. It's straight in like, so how many girlfriends have you had? Are they all real? Or it's
Oh
like,
my God. Savage.
or it's my first, well, why is everyone's autopilot? Oh, you've got a girlfriend. Is she disabled? Huh? I just think there's a telepathy thing where we all get together and go,
Yeah.
yes, we must be.
So it's so funny because I recently had a coach that I work with in CrossFit. And I was talking about a skipping rope that's specifically designed for people who only have like upper limb like impairments. Like
Yeah.
that's the technical CrossFit term for it. And he turned to me and he was like, well, do you not have any mates that you could borrow one off? And I was like, do you think that we all know each other? Like, do you think there's a group where we all chat and we like swap stories and we like send each other items that we think are going to be useful? Like that's not really how it
Yeah.
works.
No. Or my other favorites. Oh, I've got a friend who's also in a wheelchair. She lives in Australia. Do you know her?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. It's such a classic one. Or my favorite one that I've ever had is like, bear in mind that like my disability is solely to do with my arm. Like mobility doesn't really affect me all that much. I got someone
Yeah.
come up to me and was like, oh, my son's got spina bifida too. And I was like, are you aware they're very, very different? Very, very different.
Yeah, just just small, just a tiny bit.
It's amazing. It is amazing.
It's a weird place, this world.
Like we said, like we're on a floating rock. So like, are we
Yeah.
surprised? Like, are we really
No.
surprised?
Nope.
So for you and your career, I always like to
Yep.
ask, being like a disabled person, did that like affect how your career path went, or like what career path you went down? How did it manifest, or how did it not manifest for like what you do now?
I actually, and I don't want to be a negative ninny, but it actually had a huge impact on the career path that I took. So, for example, I did really well in performing arts in school,
Yeah.
to the point where my drama teachers were like, he's a shoe-in for the Brit School or like any
Yeah.
performing arts school. Like I got, not to brag, but I got like A stars across the board in performing
Yeah.
arts. But I didn't pursue a career in performing arts purely because the roles weren't there, or I felt that the roles weren't there to take up, and the career was there to earn enough money to be able to live.
Yeah.
So then I looked at other options, looked at what I could do, and actually sat there and thought sitting behind a desk is probably more practical, to be honest. And that's the thing, and then it's taken me down a different path. But then again, I do so many projects now off my own accord, and I'm in full control of those, and have had some great experiences. So on the one hand, I had a huge impact in terms of coming out of school and going straight into my quote unquote dream career. Like I originally went into digital marketing, had a little bit of a negative experience in one company and then moved into more what I do now, working in local government, but it's a bit more of, it's more of a, and sorry if any managers are listening to this, it's more of a thing to cover me and make me so that I'm able to live, and obviously then I can have the freedom to do my other projects on the side, and fingers crossed turn it into something one day. And we're slowly making strides in the right direction, but it's a big thing, particularly living in London. Everyone says to me, oh, especially coming out of school wanting to be digital marketer, everyone's like, oh, going to London, you can earn shed loads of money. But I didn't go into London because the stress of getting on a train as a wheelchair user, the stress of making sure that you're on the right train, someone's there to get you at the other end, then you've got to get your wheelchair in the car, drive home, get your wheelchair back out the car. It was just like it's a whole thing, and that's something that people need to realize, is that earning opportunities now not so much, because COVID happened and everyone went, wow, we can all work from home, and the whole disabled community sat there and was like, we've been saying this stuff for years. Like I remember saying to employers when I was looking for jobs when I left school, oh, but I can learn from working at home. Oh, we don't really, you're obviously being new, we want to really get you into the team, when actually what they were really saying was, you're 18 years old, we don't trust you that you're going to do the work. When I was talking to someone on my podcast the other day, and it's that whole thing of disabled people have this thing in the back of their head where they have to work 12 times harder than an average person to hold down a job, because they think the guillotine is above their head waiting to drop. As soon as you make a mistake, that's it, you're gone, you're disposable. When actually in the grand scheme of things, it's probably not the way businesses think. But that's the chip on most disabled people's shoulders, is we feel that we have to prove that we're worthy for that job. So disability played a big part in the career that I took, but then also it took me into the career I do now outside of my day job. I wouldn't be sat here with you, I wouldn't own my own podcast, I wouldn't do half the opportunities that I do. So it's a bit of a catch-22, but then I suppose it's that old cliche, everything happens for a reason. So here I am.
And I think that what you said, when you said that you didn't pursue like your acting because you didn't see the roles that were there for you, I think that's a really like profound thing for people to realize, is that your hopes and dreams were, you know, at one point centered around going into like the Brit School, going to, you know, like dramatic arts, let's like call it that for the minute. And actually because because the roles for you weren't there, you didn't go for it. But why aren't the roles there? Because, you know, we are like a part of society. So what does that say about the roles that are there in society? Like what we're saying about media and entertainment, if the roles aren't there for you to play, when actually they fucking should be.
I completely agree. And it's that whole thing of like, why is an able-bodied person playing a disability role? And one thing that was interesting is I had, not to bring it back to my podcast, but I had a guest on my podcast, and he spun it on its head a little bit. We're both wheelchair users and both got a performing arts background, but he spun it on his head a little bit in terms of an actor wants to have a challenge. An actor wants to play something different. So for them, I suppose it's a challenge. Oh, I've got to play a disabled person. And actually, I had a view of like, yeah, but you're taking it away from an actual disabled person that has lived experience. And to be honest, you're going to get much closer to that marker having that lived experience. And that's nothing against the guest. He's actually a really good friend of mine. But it was a really interesting concept to say it's a challenge for an able-bodied person to play a disabled role. But then it's taking that opportunity away from someone that could smack. Like, let's be honest, if either of us is asked to play a disabled person, we're going to smash it out the park, because guess what? We are. And it's like, that's my whole thing. It's like, as you say, representation in the media isn't where it should be. We're definitely making strides in the right direction. We have shows like Sex Education. Obviously, that's had a massive impact on the disabled community, but they're not like you turn the corner and there's a disabled person. It's like things like I Love the Last Leg, and that's a brilliant idea, but that's not. It's on regular, but it's not. I don't flick over from Channel 4 to ITV and it's another disabled person. It's I go to Channel 4 because they're the ones that actually And that's like not directly at Channel 4. That's just an example. Like you're not going to see it at every stage. Like it's just not there. And that's the issue. But it is getting better. I have to say, it is getting better. We're seeing particularly like obviously acting is getting there slowly. Modeling starting to appear a little bit more. Yeah. So we are making strides in the right direction. It's just getting through to people that we're part of the community too.
Yeah. And that's so true. That is so true.
And also, we don't have to speak about this. Like, we don't have to be like, right, we've got Charlie on today, and he's going to talk about his disability. I could actually talk about football. I could actually talk about like, I mean, I wouldn't because I don't know too much about it, but politics. I could talk about the topics that everyone talks about because guess what? We have opinions too.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's like you always have this is the disability section. Ta-da! And it's like, why don't we ask Charlie, I don't know, what would you like to be cooked on Good Morning Britain this morning? It's just, it's that whole thing of like, we don't have to just talk about our disabilities. And obviously I have a very open perspective in terms of talking about my disability, but then some people don't want to. So it's opening that door to the individuals that don't just want to be the disability showcase. They want to talk about their love of fashion or like something completely different, and that opens that door. So let's get this whole, we can only have a disabled person if we're talking about something disabled or something to affect that community. Let's just normalize. Why don't we ask Brooke what her opinions are on skinny jeans?
Love a pair of skinny jeans. I'm all for them.
Oh, mate, the worst thing about being having cerebral palsy, particularly affecting your legs, I have to wear spray on skinny jeans. Do you know how difficult they are to get on and off? They are so hard.
Like glue on your skin.
Yeah. But otherwise, they just look like I'm wearing flares all the time. And I'm like, it's not the look I'm going for. It's just not the one.
And so you mentioned your podcast, and I would love for you to talk a bit more about your podcast and like have a bit of a free reign moment. Like go for it. Talk about your podcast. Tell me all about it.
So my podcast is quite, from what I'm getting, is quite a similar platform to this, of grabbing people with different disabilities, different backgrounds, particularly, and there's like a business bit to it as well, because that's another passion of mine to sort of bring it together. But I really wanted it to be an open conversation. So I really wanted it to be, look, if swearing's your thing, go ahead and do it. If using a term that some people find offensive is your thing, do it, because that's your authentic self. I really wanted to grab someone and go, what is the real you? Forget what we should be doing. What's your view? What should we be doing from your view? And that's why I set up the Not Quite Pod, was let's get rid of this everyone analyzing what they say before they say it. Like just say it. Like I say, I would much rather someone says something completely wrong and everyone stops and goes, that's okay, we need to do some work there. I completely get where you're coming from, but we need to do some work before you go out in the wider world and start using those terms. But then that's really the opportunity for someone to learn, because I want to get rid of this whole thing of someone feeling awkward because they're learning something new. Like, yes, we've all, let's be honest, we've all said some dumb stuff before someone's gone, you probably shouldn't have said that.
Yeah.
And then
exactly.
It's that gut feeling of you feel like a mug, whereas I'm trying to get rid of that and go, look, yes, okay, completely get where you're coming from, but here's why you might want to take it from this view. And that's why we've opened this platform, is that it's fun, it's friendly, it's a bit of banter, and I just love chatting to people. Hence why I'm here. I just love sitting, having a chat, getting a grasp on someone's story, really diving into who they are, what makes them tick. Because then as well, like, it's like almost making friends really rapidly, because you really get to know someone.
I completely agree with you on that. It is almost like a fast pass of like becoming, like making friendships. It's exactly what it is.
Yeah. And that's why we got it. And it's as I say, for me, it's breaking down stereotypes. That's the belief of NQPC, and always has been, is breaking down stereotypes and talking about disability in a fun and friendly way. And I love it. I don't know. It's my little baby. It's quite new. We've only been going since April, but I love it. And hopefully one day it will turn into something.
Yeah. And I love that as well, because I think there's so much to be said about disability, like regardless of what you're saying, is that actually all disabled perspectives and voices are all completely valid, because while society tends to put disability under one massive umbrella term, there are so many different strands and intersections, and how people view themselves and how the non-disabled community view themselves in relation to disability. It's all completely different, but there's space for absolutely all of it, because all of it is absolutely valid, because these are our lived experiences, and for so long we weren't given the platform to talk about them, and we weren't allowed to speak about them. We weren't allowed to have these conversations. We weren't allowed to mix with other disabled people. These things didn't exist. So for us now to have these platforms to be able to talk about disability and connect with other disabled creatives, and also just to like you said, like make new friends, is incredible.
Yeah. And my favorite thing is watching someone, like, you can see I've said something and they're like, oh, I've got really strong opinions about this. And literally they go off like a grenade. But then afterwards you speak to them and they're like, that feels a lot better. And I'm like, yeah, that's what I love. I love that whole, see, you're not the only one. We all have that thing of like, oh, this is really stupid. Why does this happen? They should change this. And I love that, because I sit there going, one, it highlights it, but then you can see the relief of someone to be able to speak to someone that gets it. They're like, no, yeah, I completely get that trains are a pain in the arse. There's so many things we could do better, and it just doesn't feel like anything's happening. But it's nice to be able to say, am I going completely nuts, or is this bloody ridiculous?
Yeah. And I think that's it's brilliant that you're creating that space for people to almost like bend and then be like, okay, let's spin it on its head and let's look at it from all different angles. Because quite often I think the disabled community in general can be quite hot-headed, and like I will absolutely I will absolutely like put myself in that category. Like I can be quite hot-headed, and when something annoys me, like I don't really have a problem with being like, this is wrong and this is outrageous, but then actually after I've said it, I'm like, is it still as outrageous as I thought it was?
I had that. I went, where did I go? I went on holiday to Turkey, and I had that at, when we landed back in the UK. So obviously, for those that don't know, they normally bring your wheelchair up to the plane, get you off, and do it that way. But then we landed, and I'd checked my voicemails from when I landed back home to see if anything happened. I'd got the notification that my car that I'd ordered in February wasn't going to arrive for another 2 months. So in my head, I'm like, for God's sake. Then the bloke's come up and gone, oh, they forgot to tell us to get your wheelchair out. So we've now got you like one of the like what they call, one of the airport chairs. And I'm like, and then they're trying to stick, and I really hate, I mean, I know some people have got to use them, but I really hate the aisle chairs, because I feel like I've been Hannibal Lecter, like strapped in. So I'm being strapped into this seat, just been told my car's not going to arrive. Then he's like, oh, I've not got your wheelchair. Then he all of a sudden goes, oh no, now I've got your wheelchair. So I'm like, so I've just clambered off of this plane, and my chair has been there the entire time. And I had a face like thunder. Then I sat there afterwards and was like, that all came from the fact that my car wasn't going to arrive. If that hadn't happened before it, I probably would have reacted like that. I would have probably been frustrated, but I would have been like, okay, whatever. But I was furious. I was like, nope.
It's really funny how there are so many like similar traits between disabled people. Like, tends to be like dark sense of humor, some form of like chaotic energy. Like, honestly, I don't really know like a disabled person who literally has like absolutely everything aligned and everything together. There is something inherently chaotic about having a disabled body. Like, there just is. And like dark sense of humor, hot-headed, but also really fun. Like, I don't know a boring disabled person. Like, that's factual.
We normally, like, I'd say it's like some of us as well have hyper energy, so like it's like letting, especially if we meet someone that gets it, we're like, oh, I love this, like I can actually speak properly to you.
That is so true.
Instead of meeting someone, it's like, oh, are you okay? It's like, oh, okay, yeah. Like I remember I met Katush, and she was on my podcast, a friend of mine. We met at an event at the Purple Goat. Purple Goat and an agency did a party. We're both at this party, and she came over, never met before, and she was like, you got cerebral palsy, didn't you? And I'm like, yep. She was like, I knew it. I was like, what do you mean? She was like, I got it too. And then she goes, I was like, how did you tell? She was like, one, the T-Rex arm. So I was like, wow, okay, we're just going straight in for the jugular. And then she's like, also like this whole being the center of attention and talking with your hands, that's a thing as well. And then we all do this, like if anyone else that's got cerebral palsy, it's when she said this, I went, oh my God, that is so true. So we all do this like weird head back tilt thing that you do. So like if someone's pushing your wheelchair, you'll do this weird like head tilt back thing to try and talk to the person behind you, but you look weird as hell doing it. But you don't, like at the time it feels completely normal, you're not doing anything weird, and then afterwards someone shows you a picture and you're like, what's going on there?
What are you doing?
Yeah, and it's like, it's those situations I love, because I think they're going, that's when it's really funny, because you're like, I thought that was just me, but okay, yep, no, apparently that's a cerebral palsy trait, but okay, cool.
So I like to ask everyone, and I
Yep.
really need to figure out how I word this, because every time I do it, it kind of comes out not so great, but we'll roll with this. Do
Yep,
you
hit me
have
with it. Good.
a piece of advice for a younger version of yourself, so younger Charlie, but also
Yep.
a younger person with the same disability as you?
My best piece of advice, and it's I've only realized recently, is the quickie. Now this sounds really like, oh, you make it sound so easy, but the quicker you can get to accepting your disability, like yes, you're gonna have good days, bad days. You're gonna have days when you think, why the hell did I get picked for this shit? Like you're gonna get days like that. That's gonna happen no matter whether you've accepted it or not. But the sooner you get to accepting, yeah, I am different, but I still have a good life and still can experience this, that, and the other. That's the best place to be, and that's something that I've only really hit sort of. I probably say 18. I hit that, and that was not to stroke my friend's ego, but then that was when I found the group of friends I have now, and like that was. They really helped me just go, look, like it is what it is. Like if when we go out, we need to find a disabled toilet, we'll find a disabled toilet. If you need help putting your shoes on, we'll put your shoes on. And that really helped me in terms of like, I didn't feel like a burden to anyone, but then also psychologically for me, it made me go, oh shit, this isn't as like, it sucks at times, but it isn't as bad as I first thought. And it's all about finding the right circle around you as well. So that's why I always say, really focus on who you've got around you, because they're going to be the ones that support you.
Yeah.
It's like I love the fact that now I've got a group of friends where if we're going on a night out and I'm like, shit, I've still got my Crocs on. I can't get well now. Actually, no, now it's trendy, so I could go out with Crocs. However, I can't. At the time, Crocs were not the one, so I was like, I can't go out with Crocs. So I'd go to my friend. Oh, can you just quickly change shoes? And it turned into this hilarious 20 minutes because one, we'd had a few drinks before we were going out. Two, my friend ties laces in the weirdest way possible. Three, he can't get my foot in the shoe because he can't flipping see straight. God knows how. We're only on our second drink. But then those little stories come about because, yes, you've got your weird, wonderful ways of doing things and things that you need support with. But it gets rid of that awkwardness of, oh, shit, I need my shoes put on, but I don't want to ask my friend. Or like one of the hardest things was getting my head around asking my now girlfriend. I mean, we've been together 6 years, so she doesn't bat an eyelid. But at the time when we first got together, asking her to put my shoes on was the most like embarrassing thing ever. To be like, can you just put my shoes on? I was just waiting for her to go, what? What did you just ask me? And that's the thing. It's like one, obviously, to summarize, one, really try and get to a place where you fully accept your disability. Because unfortunately, unless we find a miracle pill, they're probably not going to go anywhere. You're going to have things that get better, they get worse. Whatever happens, happens. But the sooner you can go, look, this is me, this is the card I'm dealt. Let's just see what we can do with it. That's the best place to be in. And I'm not saying that happens overnight. I know what I'm asking people to do is something that's a bit weird and a bit like, oh yeah, if only it was that simple, Charlie. What are you talking about? How do I even start that? I don't know how you start that. All I can say is just chip away at it. I'm not saying you're going to be there tomorrow, but just chip away at really going, look, it is what it is. Let's just have a laugh of it. And then also on top of that, really find, if you can, find a group of friends, and a group of people that you really click with, because that's going to get rid of, because a lot of what makes you feel an outsider, unsettled, is the people that you have around you, because you've got that nervous energy of, oh, if I say the wrong thing, or if I ask help with this, it's really weird, or if I need help with this, what am I going to do? Or if I don't know, but it's that finding people that go, yeah, I don't care that you need help with that. We're mates, it's fine. Like, let's just make a bit of a joke of it. And that's all it is for me now. And that's a great place to be. And I'm not saying, as I said previously, it's not something that you've done it, it's all completed. You're always going to be happy. You're always going to have bad days, but then so does your average Joe. It's not specialist to disabled. Yes, we have extra shit, and yes, there are certain things that, like, yes, Karen, but let's be honest, I have a little bit more shit to deal with than you. But but then it's just trying to get to that place where I actually feel good most of the time. And then every time you have that dip, you've got that circle around you to pull you back up.
Yeah. I think that's so valuable what you said about the people around you, particularly regarding disability, because you're right in that actually if you don't have the right people around you, you can feel very nervous and very on edge, especially when you need, extra hand, or, something that you might really need help with. Asking the wrong person can make you feel really on edge and like quite nervous. So actually I think that's a really wonderful piece of advice, is that surround yourself with people that love you for exactly who you are and nothing else.
And now, just to add on to that, as well as that, I'd all say as well, which is something I'm learning over the last few months. A lot of the stuff that you think, oh, that's ridiculous, I'm gonna have to ask this person to help, and they've never helped me before. Most of the time, most people were like, yeah, sure. Most people go, yeah, it's fine, don't worry about it. Like, it's not a problem. And it's mostly that you've built it up in your head as this weird thing that, oh, okay, if I do this, I'm going to look like an alien. No, it's just you building up in your head. Realistically, most people will look at that and go, that's how Charlie does it. Fine, move on.
Yeah, like next.
Yeah. But yeah, that's probably my last bit, is say try and get over that hurdle of asking people for help. And that's something I'm working on. It's like I'm very reluctant to ask a stranger for help, but most people are decent people, and will help you.
Yeah, that's very true. So for you, and for me, and actually for the whole general disabled population, and we've actually touched on this earlier, so we get asked some very bizarre questions quite regularly.
Yep.
And I was wondering if you could tell me, or like if you had any particular question that every time you get asked it, you're like, oh, not again, or you're like, for goodness sake, or actually like you've got a really good comeback for an awkward question that you get asked.
I've got quite a few. How long have we got?
We've got ages. We've got as long as it takes.
Oh man, like honestly, like I swear every disabled person has this, but it is, some of the questions are utterly ridiculous. But then again, like, one, they give me a story to tell, and two, in that person's head, it sounded completely normal. So take this with a pinch of salt, because obviously I do preach, ask the question and we'll sort out the shit later. So fair enough. You literally took my point and shoved it down my throat, so that's absolutely fine. But some of the weirdest ones I've had is, particularly as a male, one of the ones we always get is, does it work? Why is that always the first place everyone goes to? Does it work?
People effing love that question, particularly for guys. And I've noticed this, like I've spoken to quite a few like males, particularly, who do have like cerebral palsy. And this question gets brought up so much. And I'm just like so intrigued by it, because at what point did someone think that was acceptable to ask? But also, like, why are you so heavily interested in that? Like what is it doing for you?
Yep. And then I've had, if you and your girlfriend have kids, will the kids come out in wheelchairs? That was a good one.
Oh my God.
To which I responded, yeah, they come out in pink and blue ones.
Oh my goodness. You couldn't write it. You actually couldn't write it.
I mean, most of the ridiculous ones are around intimacy and dating.
Yeah.
To be honest, most of those ones are the most ridiculous. My girlfriend often gets like, oh, like, well done you for like taking care of him and this, that, the other. And it's like, he's not a booby prize. Like, I don't know why people have this thing of, oh, well done. Like, oh yeah, like, thank you for looking after him. I'm like, she's not
Well
my
done,
carer.
you. Well done, you, for dating someone with a disability. Aren't you a good
Mm.
soul? Boring.
Jesus, I'll tell you what, I say Gina, my other half, that had never really dealt with anyone with a disability before she met me.
Mm.
Now, god damn it, she's feisty. I'm like, okay, chill. Right, there's seven disabled spaces. He's taking up one. The other eight are available. We have to get here by 8 o'clock. It's currently 5:55, 7:55. We need to go. I don't care if you want to fight him.
That's so great though that like before your girlfriend met you, she hadn't like experienced the whole like I'd call it the disabled experience because you know like we
Yeah,
are an experience as people and like
yeah.
and now she's like almost just as feisty if not more so because she sees how it impacts like day-to-day life and I kind of love that for
Mm.
you and for her.
Yeah. I mean, it is. It's that's where a lot of our questions come from. Is like
Yeah.
it's being in a relationship. Like as well, we're both ginger, so that throws everyone completely off because everyone thinks it's just incest is wincest, but it's not. um,
That's
and that's
amazing.
literally where everyone goes. I can't believe I just said that on a podcast, but there we go. It's there now.
Can't take it back now.
No. Moving on. No, to be fair, like yeah, so that's a lot of it comes from relationships. Like I say, does it work? How do you do X, Y, Z? Yeah, or is he any good? Which is one of my favorites.
What random like
Yeah,
people, man.
to be honest, most of my weird ones, like a lot of I think it's because in my head everything else I can see the logic for. So I can go, yeah, okay, I can see why you're asking this. I'm going to answer with this. But
Yeah.
that one, it's just how people go straight in for the jugular,
Yeah.
straight in, like, yep, I'm going for this one. And it's like, okay.
Could have warmed me up first, maybe taken me out for a drink and we could have had a nice
Yeah,
time. But no, you're diving straight in.
it's normally like, hi, my name's Charlie. Nice to meet you. No, we're just, okay, fine, cool, carry on. What would you like to know next? Yeah, to be honest, I can't think of any like normal weird, but then I suppose they wouldn't be weird if they were like any like ones on relationship surrounding, and a lot of mine are from that,
Yeah.
like weird ones like that, like all the other ones you can see the logic behind, like can you drive, can you feel your the other one that's a little bit weird is can you feel your legs. I'm a bit like some of that one throws me off sometimes because I'm like, I mean, I'm literally standing right in front of you on a walking frame. What do you think? Like,
I love people. I do. I love people so much. Like I'd love to
or
understand why people ask the questions they do.
the other ones. Does he want a coffee? Yes, please. 2 sugars.
And that's because they think that you're not going to be able to respond back.
Yeah. Or the other one that's my favorite is are you okay? Do you know what you're doing? Yes, I do.
Wow. People genuinely amaze me. People I like there's never been a time that someone has said what their like weird question is to me that I haven't been
Yeah,
like taken aback because people get so
yeah,
many different things and particularly like different disabilities get very different questions. It
yeah.
amazes me. Genuinely it amazes me. But like thank
The
you for
other one
sharing your weird and wonderful ones. I think they're hilarious.
the other one I get, and we were talking about this, me and my friend were talking about this the other day, was anytime you speak to a disabled person that works, like has a day job or that might be self-employed or do whatever, it's always like, oh, is it a charity? No, it's a business.
That is so
Like,
true. That is so true.
yeah, it is. It's literally like, why does everyone think we all work for charities? In which case, like, Yeah, like we just sit there. Yeah, we just sit there raising money for everyone else. We don't worry about ourselves.
Yeah, no, we don't have bills to pay. We don't have mouths to feed.
No, yeah, we don't need food. We are the lesser species.
People like to believe, but actually they are wrong. We are not.
Why are we not locked in a cupboard somewhere and just left? It's like, oh, it's just people amaze me. Like literally that whole thing of, oh, is it a charity? No, I can tell you about 5 or 6 people that run their businesses, are successful CEOs, and could wipe the floor with you.
Yeah, exactly that. Interesting is that I like to think about positive attributes that we all have as people, because I believe that, you know, we all go through some form of hardship in our life. And I do believe if you haven't necessarily gone through some form of hardship, then it's probably on its way to you. But during these times,
Yeah.
I think if you can focus on like a positive attribute about yourself, or if you look back upon reflection and think, actually, I handled this situation really, really well, then you've grown from it, right? And so I was wondering, do you have a particular positive attribute within yourself that actually you're really proud of?
Good question. Really good question. I'd probably say I think I will come back to being an open book. And that's all
Mm,
my thing because I like to think I can always put someone at ease. And that's my
yeah.
favorite thing. I can always go, look, it's fine. We can get through this. It's absolutely fine. And that's one attribute that I always like. I can always settle someone down, and because I think a lot of it comes in from obviously, as you said, you've had your own hardships, and I can relate to some of it. Like people
Yeah.
who are suffering with anxiety, whether that be from stress from work or a family situation, I can sit there and go, I get it. I completely get it, and try these things because these things help with me. And that's my favorite thing is by being so approachable and so honest. And people always say to me, "You wear your heart on your sleeve." Like I'll tell you, I don't know what my sister's name is within 2 days of knowing you, and that's because I just think, look, the more you know about me, the more comfortable you're going to be about me, and the more we can actually talk about proper stuff, not just. So, what did you think of the football result yesterday?
Yeah.
I yeah, so that's my whole thing is being so approachable and also using that experience and that approachability to help others. It's my favorite thing to be able to do
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, people go through hell every day and people don't know. Like it's that whole thing of my favorite thing, and my friend said this to me. People only know the stresses they're exposed to, or only know the things that they're exposed to. So something that you might look at and go, "Why is he getting so stressed about that?" When actually he's never experienced that level of stress. You've surpassed that and you were able to cope with
Yeah.
that. So that's completely different. So stop going, oh, but I got on with this and I didn't do this, or I did this and didn't get stressed. Get that out of your head because it doesn't work. And
Yeah.
that's something I'd want to point out to people is look, people only know what they're exposed to. So the more you can help people from your experience, whether that means that you've surpassed them and dealt with a higher level of stress, a higher level of anxiety, or you've just learned better coping mechanisms, use that, show them the way, because no one wants to be in that hellhole. Everyone hates it. You speak to anyone that's been in that situation, everyone hates it. No one goes, oh, do you know what I want to be today? Anxious. No. Like it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my thing is just being open, being honest. So that's my favorite attribute is being such an open book, and that's I suppose that's a key indicator of what my platform is about is being open and being honest. So yeah,
Yeah. And I think actually that's such a lovely attribute to have as a person, especially in today's world where actually a lot of people can be very guarded and not necessarily everybody is willing to open up because God knows what you might find out about a person. But actually being an open
yeah,
book is such a brilliant attribute to have because, like you said, like you wear your heart on your sleeve, and at least people know where they stand with you. Like there's no there's no bullshit.
yeah,
But number two, it also means,
yeah,
like you said, like you're able to help other people out with their experiences through your own experiences, which I personally think it's the most like wonderful thing in the world if you can learn from another person through like lived experience or through their experience. I think it's a brilliant thing that you can pass on that message. So I think, yeah, like what a banging attribute to have. Like, how cool is that?
as I say, it's just the way I was brought up to be open and honest. And like, as I think it was where I became very articulate at a very young age in terms of
Mm-hmm.
I understood a lot more, I suppose, adult conversations in terms of when I was younger, I couldn't run around. So
Yeah.
I just sat at the dinner table with the adults and tried to chip in where I could and have the conversations. Because of that, I've become a lot more socially aware and a lot more. I'm very into having conversations. I'm not really. I was never. Don't get me wrong. I love a good party, but never really into that whole clubbing thing. Like, it wasn't me. One, they're the most inaccessible places, but then two, I'd much prefer to sit in a bar, have a chat. How's things going? What's not going well? Oh, I've got this really cool business idea. Let me spin it past you. That's the most radical shit I've ever heard. That's fantastic. Let's do that tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'd much rather have those conversations than sort of go out partying, because you don't really get to know someone by
Yeah.
going out to a rave. They're great fun, but you don't get to know someone really. Because you're just shouting over music, and I sound like a little old man, and that's terrible. But there you go.
Do you know what though? I think that's it's so key though, because I think everything that you've said is actually, when you don't necessarily get to know people, it can be very one-dimensional. It can be very transactional. Like, going
Yeah.
out is good fun. Like, I love going out. It's a good laugh, but also, like, I'm with you. I
Yeah.
absolutely love sitting down, getting to know these people, like getting to know new people, and like it's probably why I also have my own podcast, is because I also freaking love a chat. Like, I love getting to learn about people.
Yeah.
So I completely understand what you're saying about things being very transactional and very one-dimensional, because I think I'm someone who also loves like deepness. Like, I absolutely love getting to know someone and like really getting to know what makes them tick, and like that for me is what like makes the world go around. So yeah, completely understand you. I'm with you. I'll be the granny and you can be the granddad. Like,
sounds great to me.
So I've only got one final question for you, and I think you're gonna like it. Like, I'm pretty sure you're gonna like it, and if you don't like it, I'll probably be quite surprised. But that is, Charlie, are you disabled and proud?
No. But yes, yeah. As I said earlier, like, it's all about getting to the stage where you can accept your disability as much as possible. And not everyone can get to that stage, but the more you can progress to that stage, the better. So for me, I always look back and go, how many dumb opportunities did I get because I'm sat in a wheelchair? Like, I have a really weird conflict of interest in terms of, I hate the box ticking exercise. So I hate the whole thing of like, oh, we must have a disabled person tick the box. But then I also sit there thinking, nah, fuck it, just use it. Like, because there's the amount of opportunities that just pop up because they're like, oh, we need a disabled person. And I'm like, hi.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is like, the more you can get to that space, it's better. But then also, like, the amount, I said earlier, the amount of opportunities I had. I've been on TV. I've met some amazing people. I've had some amazing opportunities. Worked with some amazing companies, all because I'm the guy in a wheelchair that posts his random shit on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube.
Yeah.
And I also talks a lot of shit on his podcast. But yeah, and that's my favorite thing, is like, yes, it's hard because people go, oh, people shouldn't know me for my disability, like that shouldn't define who I am. But then I sit there and I'm like, 95% of my humor comes from my disability. So like, conflict of interest. But yeah, to come back to your point, I because people always ask us, would you hand back your disability? And I personally, I always answer this question, no. The reason being, because of the amount of opportunities I got from being disabled, being that guy that's in a wheelchair, that's ginger, that's a bit loud, a bit proud, and a bit wants to be the center of attention. And that's the great thing, because that's who I am. I don't know what I would have been. I could have been an accountant. I could have played football. I don't know. But why worry about it? Because it's not in my lifetime. I always go to the view of, in my lifetime, it's not going to happen. So let's make the most of what we got.
Exactly. And I actually think that's a really beautiful place to wrap up. I have genuinely loved this chat today. I think it's going to be so insightful for so many people, and like, your energy is so infectious and you are very, very funny. So thank you so much for giving up your time to be on the podcast today. I like super mega appreciate it, and I can't wait for you to hear it.
Anytime. As we were talking about before, I feel like I just waffled. So if anyone finds this insightful, let me know, because like, it feels like I waffled.
No worries, but thank you so much.